Hey everybody, Professor Snark just checking in here as we look at our next due date, which is today already, Tuesday, July 5th. So it's the morning when I'm recording this, so you may end up watching the video sometime during the process of submitting the work for the current unit, which is Unit 3, or maybe even after, but just kind of a quirky start to our semester with the July 4th long weekend happening. Oh, lots of other people, lots of people experienced some problems with Blackboard on Friday, July 1st. Worst possible timing, of course. I guess there was a power outage at COD, which is now, there's mention made of it on the Blackboard website. So the power was out from like 7 until 11 p.m. or something like that. So a number of websites were down. So normally a time when people aren't clamoring to get on Blackboard or COD website necessarily, but of course for us, worst possible timing. So simple IT issue, no big deal. If you didn't get the work submitted on time, obviously the website was back up for Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So be sure you do complete the work for the first 2 units. And we move into Unit 3 then, so really, again, into the kind of core readings and ideas for the class. And this is one of my favorites, I have to admit, for a number of reasons. Partly because I'm a big fan of modern-day incarnations of these kinds of stories. So the epic, the big sort of larger-than-life hero. In fact, we now call them superheroes, as if being a hero at some point historically wasn't enough, like, oh, he has a hero, but just a hero. Now we call them superheroes, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. But somebody like Gilgamesh or even Aeneas from the Aeneid is, certainly heroes in the complex sense of that term, and maybe even superheroes. Certainly there's this interesting connection between our modern superheroes and how they every summer seem to dominate the big screen, whether it's variations on that, the troubled hero, that kind of Batman's sort of character, or the much purer sort of Superman, or all of that mix in between that you get with a collection like the X-Men, which is a great reinvention of epic tales, because you have all of these characters to work with and not just the one that features so often in like in the epics that we're reading. So I love seeing that connection between these really ancient literature and the sort of ideas or problems of the nature of the hero character, and what heroism is exactly, and at what point does doing great things become just doing too much and sort of pissing people off at some point. They get sort of tired of you. I love seeing the connection between culture working through that thousands of years ago, and then how it reinvents itself throughout history, but really for us at this particular age that we're in, whether it's an age that needs heroes, needs superheroes, needs heroes who aren't perfect or pure. And that in itself is an interesting kind of thing to think about. And Superman, or even Batman, actually, they're really great examples where they've existed for decades in our kind of modern culture, but at certain periods they exist as heroes really without flaws. They always do the right thing. They always make the right choice. Their motivations are always pure. But at other points in history, and certainly we see this in the more modern incarnations of them, and again, Batman is maybe the best example actually, where at certain moments that purity really breaks down and the story is kind of retold, or the character is reinvented as this much more complex character whose motivations are questionable, whose background is a lot more complicated and dark. Even that the identification of Batman as the Dark Knight, as this new sort of move, which is much closer to the more recent, graphic novel or comic book version of Batman, the sort of reintroducing the complexity into the character. You wonder how much that reflects, again, culturally, sort of people's desire for a hero that's not so perfect, not so impossible to live up to. So a hero that's both super but also reflective of kind of realistic, complicated motivations. Whereas if you look at somebody like, again, the old Adam West Batman, not really a complex character, right? pretty funny to watch now, but did he exist during an age, and the same with Superman, during an age when people didn't want complexity in their superheroes? They needed that sort of pure figure. Again, those big questions that are interesting to consider that arise out of a class like ours. And they certainly don't have any answers, and even analysis of that kind of character and its relationship to the culture that it springs out of. I mean, that's the work of a PhD thesis or a book, certainly, and nothing that you could compress into an essay in any easy way. But anyway, so that's one of the reasons that I really love this particular unit, is that it provides the roots for so much that's actually familiar to us today in terms of these epic narratives, these big stories, and these big characters, and exactly what the nature of heroism really is. And of course, if you can start a unit with a clip from Star Trek, you're doing even better. So I've completely dorked out here, I realize, but such is the life of the professor of world literature, I guess. Anyway, if you have any questions, just be in touch with me, and be sure to check into your grade book just to make sure you got credit for everything that you did. And if you had troubles getting into Blackboard, couldn't submit all the work, but then did so later, be sure you let me know so that I can go back in and see it. Otherwise, it doesn't always show up for me as like new work that needs to be graded, depending on what it is. So be in touch with any questions or concerns, and I'll talk to everybody later.